We talk about Shades Cahaba a lot on this podcast for obvious reasons. Now, with a school that taught grades 1 through 12, you get a little tunnel vision and start to think this is all there was in Homewood. Not true. There are other schools, and we're going to talk about a few of those on this episode of the Shades Cahaba Oral History Project. I'm your host, Sean Wright. Just a refresher on where the elementary students came from at Shades Cahaba. They initially came from Union Hill School, which was part of Union Hill Methodist Episcopal Church. The church was located right where the bridge is at Hollywood Boulevard and Highway 280. The school was founded in about 1867 by residents of the Wattle community, which was at Oxmoor and Cahaba Roads and would later become Mountain Brook. This school was moved to a building on the corner of the Shades Cahaba property in 1920 when Shades Cahaba opened. The students were eventually moved into the main building and officially became part of the Shades Cahaba School. There were other schools in the area, such as Miss Kate Cummings, who operated out of her home on Oxmoor Road, which was described as a select limited school for both sexes. Now, both Shades Cahaba and Miss Kate Cummings were for white children. Rosedale Public School was opened and educated black children. Early settlers in Edgewood may have gone to a school in a log cabin that students knew as the Dalrymple Place. This site is now the Dawson Memorial Baptist parking deck on Oxmoor Road. And we can't talk about schools in Shades Valley without talking about the Gsella Sofyan Academy. It was founded by Dr. James Hugh Blair Hall in the Oak Grove community in 1883. It was featured in the book Where to Educate, 1898 to 1899, a guide to the best private schools, higher institutions of learning, etc. in the United States. It was written by Grace Powers Thomas and was published by Brown & Company out of Boston. The Academy and Pleasant Hill Academy in McCalla were the only two schools in the area for children to receive senior-level classes. Pleasant Hill Academy was established by Isaac W. McAdory. Now, McAdory served as the first superintendent of the Jefferson County Board of Education, which was established in 1879 to improve supervision of Jefferson County's widely scattered schools. Now you know why McAdory High School is called what it is. The Alabama State Legislature passed the high school law in 1907, which called for a public high school in each county in Alabama. It took until 1916 for Boyles, now Tarrant, to open in Jefferson County. Shades Cahaba opened 4 years later in 1920. Birmingham City Schools had Central High School, later named Phillips High School for white children, and the Birmingham Industrial High School, later named Parker High School for black children. Students from over-the-mountain communities would travel by streetcar to attend high school before Shades Cahaba opened. Now, at the beginning of the 20th century, the over-the-mountain communities were beginning to grow and the need for bigger schools was apparent. In 1916, Gsella Sofyan Academy grads Will Franke and William Acton successfully led campaigns to get Shades Cahaba built. Now, Will Franke had a horse in the race, as they say. Early Shades Cahaba yearbooks show more than one member of the Franke family attending the school. So it's 1920 on our timeline. Where do we stand? We have a consolidated high school over the mountain at Shades Cahaba. There are still various elementary schools around, and those are about to be cleaned up in the Homewood area. The community of Edgewood became a full-fledged town in 1920, and soon after, leaders decided they needed their own school. 6 acres of land just off Broadway was purchased, and the town deeded 5 of the acres to Jefferson County Board of Education in 1924. Now, before the school was even completed, the School Improvement Association, which would later become the Parent-Teacher Association, or PTA, started identifying and supplying the needs of the school. One of the first needs was a road. You see, Edgewood School was built on a muddy field that did not even have a road leading to it. The School Improvement Association petitioned the town for a road, and a gravel road from Oxmoor Road was soon opened. A path on the north side of the school was added as well, and it went from the east to the west. Now, this path did not access Oxmoor or Broadway, but was eventually extended and renamed College Avenue. Edgewood Elementary was completed in April 1926 and opened that September with 100 students and 4 teachers. The school had grades 1 through 8, and the way they taught with only 4 teachers was to have 2 grades for each teacher, first and second together, third and fourth, and so on. Now, just like Shades Cahaba, Edgewood had the same pressing needs: a solid library connection and the need to serve lunch, or just 2 of them. Now, the first couple of years, students brought their lunch, and by 1928, an inexpensive room was built on the back of the building to serve as a lunchroom. Now, the first addition was completed in 1930, which added 4 more classrooms and a lunchroom in the basement. The Homewood Civic Club organized a band in 1932 and kindergarten in 1934. Edgewood Elementary continued to grow over the years. Now, on the evening of Friday, the 13th of November, 1953, Mrs. E.H. Todd noticed flames coming from the rear of the east wing of the school. A fire had started in the lunchroom in the basement of that wing. Firemen from Homewood, Mountain Brook, and Birmingham came to help. By the time the fire was extinguished, the lunchroom and 10 classrooms were completely destroyed, and 2 other classrooms were damaged. The school would be rebuilt, but the immediate need was what to do with half of the 900 students who needed a place to be educated. Offers came from all over, but authorities settled on an offer from the Birmingham City Schools to use the vacant Paul Hayne Vocational School building. The Kirkland Clinic on 20th Street South is where the school was located. 6th, 7th, and 8th graders were bused there, while the rest of the school stayed in the undamaged part of Edgewood Elementary. Edgewood continues to operate in the same building, and many additions later is Homewood's largest elementary school today. Oak Grove, what we now know as West Homewood, was annexed into the city of Homewood in 1955. This brought Hall Kent Elementary into the Homewood family of schools. Schools in this area go all the way back to the 19th century and includes the Sofyan Academy, which I mentioned earlier. Hall Kent originally began as Oak Grove Elementary School in 1908 at the corner of Oxmoor and Green Springs. In 1927, Oak Grove Elementary School burned to the ground, and before Jefferson County could rebuild, some of the teachers started teaching in the Oddfellows Hall, which was at the junction of Oxmoor Road, Oak Grove Road, and Gillen Drive. This would have been about where the Briary Pipe Shop is, and across the street from GM Pizzeria. I feel that I need to mention that the Oddfellows was a fraternal lodge that goes back to the 18th century in England. They're similar to Freemasons and are still around. Now, Raleigh Kent Sr. and his wife Edna May donated 4 lots in the neighborhood, and county school officials purchased a 5th lot and rebuilt where the school stands now. The school was completed in 1928 and had outdoor plumbing and water. Now, the school was named in honor of the Kent family and for Dr. James Hugh Blair Hall, who was founder of the Sofyan Academy and established the roots for this school. Children came from the communities of Oak Grove, Green Springs, and Shades Mountain. Once bus service was established, students came from Spalding, Shannon, and Oxmoor to the west. Now, one notable achievement of Hall Kent was that they had the first kindergarten program in the state of Alabama that started in the early 1930s. The PTA was instrumental in promoting and gaining public support for kindergarten classes statewide. If you live in Homewood, you probably know that Shades Cahaba has a winter festival, and Edgewood has a spring festival. You probably didn't know that Hall Kent's fall festival started all the way back in 1935 to help raise money to buy lunchroom equipment. Over the next few decades, the school grew at a rapid pace due to the amount of students moving into the area. The post-war baby boom also had a huge impact. Now, Edgewood School was affected by fire, and Hall Kent got its start due to Oak Grove Elementary being destroyed by fire. In April 1965, you guessed it, a fire broke out at Hall Kent. The wooden portion of the school was destroyed. This included the library, several classrooms, boiler room, and the lunchroom. Now, this did not affect the students the way the Edgewood fire did. While the lunchroom was being repaired, part of the office was converted to a sack lunch preparation center. It was difficult to prepare a balanced lunch, but PTA volunteer Mrs. John Moses joked, "As long as we have peanut butter, the children will think they are well fed." So that's 3 elementary schools in Homewood that are still around to this day: Shades Cahaba, Edgewood, and Hall Kent. But there is one more that needs to be remembered: Rosedale School. Community leader and educator B.M. Montgomery established a school for black children in the 1920s in Rosedale Park. They initially met in Montgomery's home. Sometimes in the 1930s, a wooden building was built up on the hill in the northeastern section of the community. The school was damaged by fire twice, and some think that the Klan may have been involved in those fires. A building made of native rocks and masonry was constructed by the Works Projects Administration to replace the wooden structure. It was built on 4 acres of property donated by local businessman Damon Lee Sr. The building opened in 1944. Rosedale initially taught elementary school students. The administrators and teachers made an effort to teach advanced grades and include foreign language in the curriculum. Rosedale was the first of the Jefferson County schools for black children to teach grades above the junior high level. Now, the quality of the education was such that when schools integrated in 1967, the students were able to join the formerly whites-only school without missing a beat. The school building is still there, and after Rosedale closed, it became the campus of Shades Valley Resource Learning Center, better known as RLC. When the new Shades Valley High School was completed in Irondale, RLC moved to that campus. This program was replaced later by the Jefferson County International Baccalaureate. And in 1995, the former RLC building was purchased by the Birmingham Islamic Society. Rosedale was a very good school, and some of their alumni are names that you know or should know. Here are just a few. Isaiah Robinson Jr., who was a Tuskegee Airman and the first African-American president of the New York City Board of Education. He was Herman Maxwell's uncle. You may remember Herman from an earlier episode. Fred Shuttlesworth, civil rights activist, founder of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, and pastor. I could do a whole show or even a series just on him. Let's just say he was so important to Birmingham that they named the airport after him. Shelley Stewart, a former radio personality and advertising executive. He eventually became the majority owner of a Birmingham ad agency that is now known as O2 Ideas. And Dr. Mamie Foster, longtime educator and most important to our story about schools in Homewood. She was a member of that first Homewood Board of Education and helped set the school system on a path that we are on today. Now, I can't leave Rosedale School without mentioning their athletic teams, which had the greatest nickname in athletics, the Sons of Kong. What a great name. Over 1,100 students graduated Rosedale School from 1937 to 1968. There you have it, an overview of Homewood Elementary Schools. Now, if you listen closely to the dates, you will notice that Edgewood Elementary will celebrate their 100th anniversary in 2026, and Hall Kent will celebrate theirs in 2028. Maybe someone from those schools will take up where I left off and create their own school history podcast at that time. Now, special thanks to author Cheryl Sumi for doing all the hard work in her book, Homewood, Life of a City. I really leaned on information in the book for this episode, and it wouldn't have happened without it. And I left out a ton of information. Now, if you can get your hands on a copy of the book, take a deep dive and read it from front to back. I guarantee you that you will learn some things about Homewood that you didn't know. Thanks again for listening and subscribing and recommending the Shades Cahaba Oral History Project. We'll see you next time. The Shades Cahaba Oral History Project is sponsored by SeanWrightArt.com. When you go there, look for the link to Shades Cahaba and you'll find shirts and accessories featuring the exclusive Shades Cahaba Centennial logo. Now, this logo is based on an image on the cover of the OWL yearbook back in the 1920s. It's been updated to celebrate the 100 years of the school and helps us to offset the cost of producing and publishing this podcast. You can find a link to the store on the podcast homepage at shadescahabahistory.com. But what if you didn't go to Shades Cahaba and you don't want a Shades Cahaba item? Well, there's plenty of other artwork and accessories to choose from. Just visit SeanWrightArt.com. Subscribe to the show wherever you find your podcast, Apple Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you subscribe to your favorite podcast. You can also listen directly on our website at shadescahabahistory.com. Now, if you like the show, We'd appreciate it if you would rate us at Apple Podcast and share the show with your friends.